Welcome to the American Express Halftime Report. Chris Miles here with Derek Fisher and Greg Anthony. The Miami Heat opened up a 19-point lead, and really Steph Curry helping lead the charge in the comeback for the Golden State Warriors. He right now is 2 for 6 from three-point range. I'm sorry, Curry is actually the only guy connected from outside, 3 for 6 from outside, while the rest of the team just 2 for 13. Fish, why is it that he's able to find a stroke, the rest of the team not right now?
Well, I thought, we talked about prior to the game, bringing their brain is the key to their success. And I thought early in this game, they mentally weren't quite tuned in. I mean, the Heat do deserve a little bit of credit for their defense, but the Warriors weren't ready to go at the start of this game. And as this game has gone on, as you see here, Stephen Curry creating opportunities for himself off the dribble, figuring out this Miami Heat defense, the way that they're playing, who's switching, who isn't. And he started to find his groove.
Josh Richardson on the other end, 5 3-pointers. That's the same amount as the entire Golden State Warriors team. Who would expect that going into this one, that at half, Josh Richardson would have 5 threes, Golden State Warriors would have 5?
Well, listen, he arguably been their best player all season. I mean, Josh Richardson's had a terrific season for the Heat, and he came out lights out in that first half, shooting it from beyond. But also, I thought they did a really good job of attacking the paint as well. And Josh Richardson, every year, he's just gotten a little bit better, more comfortable with the responsibility now of being asked to score consistently for this Heat team. And every defensive mistake that Golden State made, it seemed like in that first half, the Heat made them pay. And even though they struggled a little bit with their own turnovers, they did defend that three-point shot. I thought what was most impressive, they didn't have the breakdowns defensively in the half court that you typically see against Golden State. Even though on Steph's highlights, you saw he had to go create a lot of his offense. It wasn't off the catch that we typically see with this Golden State team. And that's one reason why there was so much success. Only I think 10 assists in that first half for a team that's accustomed to getting 30. So that tells you defensively that Miami was a little bit more in tune.
Interesting also to see Miami hit those boards to start out with an 18-3 advantage. That's even out as we got closer to the half. And certainly Golden State coming back, tying this thing up. And then the Heat able to pull out and have a 5-point lead at the break. Joel Embiid not playing games against the Lakers. That's up next. You're watching American Express Halftime Report. Time to take a look inside the box in those three-point shots favoring the Miami Heat right now. We've seen this before with the Golden State Warriors. Get down early, have a huge third quarter. What are you looking for in the start of the second half? Fish, let's start with you.
Well, I think for the Heat, they have to continue to hit the glass. We talked those 13 second chance points. That's how you hold the Warriors in, not allowing them to get out and transition in the open floor where they get wide open threes that you can't defend. So that's what I would look for the Heat to continue to try and do.
And if you're the Warriors, do you make an adjustment with your starting lineup to that point? Because they got killed on the offensive backboard, and they really couldn't handle Miami in the paint. And then you couple that with how well they shot the three. Now, having said all of that, Golden State's right back in the game. And you would expect with their firepower, they're going to have an opportunity. But sometimes you let a team get some confidence and some rhythm. They knocked down 11 threes. That basket's looking real big right now for the Miami Heat.
For the Heat, Josh Richardson really got hot in that first half. Do you think the Warriors make a defensive adjustment to make sure they slow him down in the second half?
I think they want to try, but a part of what makes the Warriors good, Miami's trying to replicate. Like their spacing and ball movement, their drive attack game has been pretty good, especially when you have an anchor that you have to account for with Whiteside, who had a pretty effective start to the game, as did the entire Heat team in terms of attacking the glass. So it makes it harder to stay in rotation when you have a guy with his head at the rim.
DeMarcus Cousins, just 4 shots, 2 points in 13 minutes. Does that surprise you a bit?
Not overly surprising. The Warriors were not sharp to start this game. And when you're not the number 1 option, number 2 option, the way Cousins was in New Orleans and in Sacramento previously, and you don't get that volume, if the team's not playing well, sometimes you're not going to look as good. And the Warriors aren't playing good basketball in this first half as well as they started to late in the half. So I think Cousins will get better as the Warriors get better here in this third quarter.
Can't overlook Dion Waiters as well, 14 points. You see him on the leading scoreboard, 5 for 8 from the field, 4 for 5 from three-point range to go along with Josh Richardson, who's 5 for 7 from three-point range. We'll be here following this game. Enjoy the second half. Golden State Warriors down by 5. Oh, dominant teams in different times. The Golden State Warriors, Miami Heat. Okay, that's LeBron James, Dwayne Wade's teams. If you take your mind out of it and forget that LeBron and Wade were on those teams and just look at the numbers, and it looks like the Golden State Warriors, on a piece of paper, have the more dominant dynasty between those two teams. So the first question for you, has Golden State already passed Miami as far as their dynasty and their window?
Oof. Listen, they are a dynasty, and they're going to go down as one of the great teams of all time. It's hard to compare teams from an era standpoint because my feeling is always, if you take a team from a different era to play against a team from this era, what rules are you going to play by? Okay, because if you took this Golden State team and you put them in the 80s or the 90s, if they had to play by those rules, you might give the edge to some of those earlier teams. But if you got to play by the rules today, I can't see a scenario where anybody's going to beat that team based on how the game's played today. With their ability to space the floor and shoot it, and now having DeMarcus Cousins, I mean, that's going to be a hard challenge for anybody to overcome because the physicality is not in the game, and the court's so much bigger today, Derek, than it was when we played, when you might worry about one guy making a couple threes. Now, you got guys in the league that are averaging 5 threes, made threes a game. And I remember playing in games where we didn't make 5 threes in a game. So it's just a different era.
So where are you on this? If we're just looking at the actual numbers, Miami, Golden State, the 4-year run, not considering what the Warriors might do this postseason.
I mean,
it's tough.
It is tough to try and pick one and say it's better than the other. I think they're different, like it says, different teams, different times. Just 5 years ago, we're talking about, it's 2019. This Heat team was in the finals in 2014. And think about even the difference in the way that they're playing. I don't know why you guys had to pick that Thunder footage. I was on that team. But just how different the game has evolved since then in terms of the way the Heat had to play in order to win titles and the way this Warriors team is playing to win its titles. I would say this Warriors team is maybe more efficient offensively in terms of their perimeter shooting, but the Heat defensively were physical and stifling. So I don't know if it's a better than Warriors Heat being better than the other team. I just think they're doing it in different ways, and we forget quickly how great Miami was. Yeah. And we can't forget right now how good this Warriors team is playing.
And keep in mind, in fairness, too, like the Warriors as a group, the teams they played in the finals weren't as good as the teams that Miami played in the finals.
Yeah, those Spurs teams,
those
that
Spurs
Thunder team with 3 MVPs on it.
Yeah, and 4 Hall of Famers. So they had a team in terms of the overall talent and the basketball IQ that was much more similar. The first year that they played Cleveland, remember, there was no Kyrie and there was no Kevin Love. I think Kyrie only played a part of 1 or 2 games.
The first game, yes.
The first game. So, but that's all part of the story. You go through the history. You've played on teams that benefited from injuries in the postseason and were hurt by it. That's a part of the game. So, but again, Golden State's dominance, it's going to stand the test of time because they've been brilliant. And they've also kind of changed the way the game is played. You talked about it during the break. There was a time where people didn't think jump shooting teams could win a championship. Well, that's been thrown out the window. Now they have become the model for which a lot of teams are trying to now mimic to get to that championship level.
So, Fish, tell me this. When you came to the Lakers, right, 96, you were drafted, and you look at what you were building towards. When did you realize, oh, this is special, this is a dynasty team? Is it after you win the first one, after you win the second one, after you three-peat? When did you feel like, wow, we have something special that's a dynasty?
Well, I think it was after we lost in 1999. There was a lockout summer. And then coming off of that, when Phil Jackson was hired as the head coach, we had suffered through 3 playoff losses prior to his arrival. And I knew we had the physical talent in order to win. And then when you combine that with the leadership and the coaching and the IQ from the sideline with Phil and his staff, I felt like I knew then, prior to us winning, that we had all of the ingredients to be special and be great for a long time. When you talk about Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Phil bringing in veteran guys like Ron Harper, who was on the dynasty teams of the Bulls, John Sally, AC Green, dynasty teams of Lakers in the late 80s. So we had this combination of wisdom, experience, and success that, blended with some young talent. And I felt like I knew then we had a chance to be great.
And keep in mind, they got swept the year before Phil was hired in the second round by Utah. They were swept. Phil comes in the next year, and they win a world championship. And so he obviously played a huge role in determining whether or not they got to that next level. And a lot of it was because of the credibility he brought after having won those championships in Chicago.
Well, you mentioned those championships in Chicago, and you had to face those early 90s Bulls teams. When did you realize, wait, this is a little different? This team that I'm facing right now, this is a dynasty, because the Knicks were right there in those series, a couple of ball bounces the other way, and you guys win some of those.
Yeah, and I think Derek will agree with this. Like, you don't think of yourself or another team as being dynastic or dominant. Like, when you really believe you can win, like, you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about what we have to do to win. We played them, I think, 2 or 3 times in 7th games. And so, you're not really focused on, oh, that's Michael Jordan. I'm in awe. You're not looking at it that way. I remember even when I was in Portland playing against the Lakers with Derek and Kobe and Shaq, part of our game, we're going at Shaq, we're going at Kobe. Yeah. We're going to attack him on offense. We could, so you're not, we respect the ability of the great Michael Jackson.
You're saying years later, or is it as soon as it's over? Like, once they win 3, you kind of see it then, or is it?
No, you don't see it. You're so in the moment. Like, you're not really like after they won a championship the next year. He's not sitting around thinking about, man, we won that championship. You're like focusing on today, trying to win another championship. Yes. You really are in the present. You're really focused on what you're dealing with now. Now there are teams, and he's facing when we face him, when you know they don't believe they can beat you. Like, I bet you through a lot of his runs, the teams they worry most about would be San Antonio and Sacramento.
For a year
or two, right? Because you would say to yourself, you know what, if we ain't right, they can get us. And so that's the mindset. Now, when you are 8 versus 1, like that 8 seed a lot of times doesn't believe that they can win. But when you start, there's 2 or 3 teams every year that you look at and you say, if we're not right, they can get us. And that motivation oftentimes is what helps you get over the hump. And that's the beauty of the game.
Intriguing. I wonder who the Golden State Warriors look at this year and think, if we're not right, they can get us. Because certainly last year, that team was the Houston Rockets, and prior to that, it was Kevin Durant's team with the OKC Thunder.
They played in the 7th game the last 2 years in the conference finals. So
we've seen the Warriors down in series, able to pull them out against the Cavs. We saw it in their first finals. We saw it against the Thunder. In the Western Conference Finals, and
the Rockets.
I think to GA's point, though, that has spread around the league a little bit. And I think there are a few teams that the Warriors know, whether it's in the Western Conference, if the Rockets are healthy and at full strength and playing well, or the Thunder as a dark horse. But the East has kind of evolved and grown with LeBron going west. I mean, Toronto, Milwaukee, and now Philadelphia, these are serious contenders to be able to win a title. Either of those 3 teams that were able to get out of the East, you see the Warriors in the finals.
You could make the argument, let's give Golden State, anoint them the best team. You could make the argument that the next 3, arguably 4 best teams in the NBA are in the East.
Stamp of approval there by GA.
The East is, and then if you look at the revamp moves they've made up to the deadline, all those teams, the Raptors have improved. Milwaukee's an improving basketball team. Obviously, Philadelphia, we saw tonight. Like, those teams and these young players now believe that they can do it. Just like Golden State did 4 years ago when no one thought they were going to be the world champs, and they went out, they believed it, and they captured the title.
A young player not necessarily in the championship role, but believes that he can do it on a night-in basis. Luka Doncic, proving it against the Portland Trail Blazers. You see him excited and them down. There's a reason for that.